One thing I haven't mentioned here is that there is an attribute on here called match user. Some of you with sharp eyes may have seen this attribute listed on here, but there is an attribute here called match user. Okay, what match user is used for is we use match user to go through and help us stitch together different providers to establish commonality of users between the different providers. So what this means is that this is how I will identify a user from Active Directory to a user in OpenLDAP. Now, match user isn't going to be used if I have all the attributes in one location. So if I have Active Directory, I've got all my RFC 2307 attributes, so the user object in Active Directory has UID number and GID number already. The match user variable doesn't matter. But if I have only my Windows SID and things like that in Active Directory, but I don't have a Unix UID number at all in Active Directory, and I need to get that from OpenLDAP, I need a method to say, hey, this user over here in Active Directory is this user in OpenLDAP. And we use that using the match user variable. So the match user variable defines an attribute whose value is going to match the equivalent match user attribute in the other provider. So the defaults here are going to be sAMAccountName for Active Directory and UID for OpenLDAP. So what this says is that when I do a lookup, and we'll use my username as an example, when I come through and I come in over SMB, I'm going to provide my Windows SID on the connection. For that, the Windows SID is going to look up, maybe looked up in Active Directory, along with some authentication things that happen. I'm very much oversimplifying things, but we'll take that SID and we'll say, hey, this is user Phil. Okay, or user Phil, and we're going to go through and look at that and say, well, Phil's user information has this, and his sAMAccountName is PWAGs, and we're going to go through and we're going to look at that and say, oh, hey, the match user variable here, we're going to look at that object. We're going to not see any Unix information, but oh, hey, I see this match user variable. Match user is sAMAccountName. Oh, okay, so I know I'm going to take PWAGs here. Oh, I also have an OpenLDAP provider configured in this tenant, and I want to use that to get the Unix attributes. So I look at the OpenLDAP provider and I say, okay, well, what's the match user variable here? Oh, that's UID. Okay, so I'm going to take the sAMAccountName value of PWAGs, and I'm going to use that to search for a UID in OpenLDAP that is PWAGs. And it says, oh, hey, this is my user ID number. My user ID number is 12345 for this. So my primary group is for 12345 for that. It says, oh, okay, well, now the system knows that, okay, the Unix UID number of 12345 is the same as user PWAGs, which is the same as the Windows user PWAGs, which is me, and that is that SID. So this will be treated as the same user across both protocols. So we can go through and we can define, which one is the primary for that. So maybe if there's a case where I've got, the Unix attributes defined in both, and I'm in migration, I can define which one is going to be the POSIX primary for that. But we'll use this match user to go through and match those two together and stitch those two providers together to give us that cross protocol identities. Now, the one thing you might ask here is, well, how does S3 play into this? S3 has access keys and user and secret keys with that. Well, when we go through and we define the S3 key, it's associated with the user, so it actually is going to be associated with both those. It's not something that has to be looked up within either AD or OpenLDAP. It's defined on the system, and we already know that information. So it doesn't need to be. We don't need to define a match user variable for S3.